Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
At some point, people will look at this body and say, maybe we should get rid of all 435 members of the House and all 100 members of the Senate and start over, because Congress is literally failing the American people.
It's Friday. And I want to give you guys a little bit of hope on this show on Friday. We have a couple guests that are going to join us inside the show for the second hour, starts at 3 o'clock. We have a guest that's going to come in at 2:30. Who is a he's a security guy. So he's going to tell us a little bit of stuff. We'll have him for about 30 minutes, and then we'll kind of move to other stuff. So it's let's be honest, shall we? Congress is not elected; they're selected. Doesn't matter what state you're in, what system you use. They use an entire system that is designed to have flaws and make mistakes, and we have to forgive those mistakes. But we forgive mistakes against the haves and not the have-nots. We have an election system that is absolutely rotted to the core. We have all of the evidence. We can look at the evidence. We can talk to people about the evidence. We could go and get people that are whistleblowers from different countries that were involved in stealing the sovereignty of our nation here. We do all of that. And at the end of the day, they still get away with saying the same things, and that is misinformation, disinformation. You don't know how the system works. It's a complicated system. The system is designed to do one thing. It's designed to count votes. That's it. It's a big old calculator. And you say, well, you have to have different types of paper, and you got to make sure that you protect the sovereignty of the vote, so nobody can know. It's the secrecy of that vote, right? Not the sovereignty, but the secrecy. And I go, okay, you could do that, and here's a few ways that you can do it. And they use those excuses all the time. And they tell a judge, if we give them the cast vote records, it'll tell them who actually voted for who. And even though it doesn't, they just lie with impunity. We saw what happened with Tina Peters' case. And the three panel judges, two of them asked good questions. One of them looked like he just sat in the corner and didn't do any of his homework before he showed up to do his job. We look at judges. Foreigner judges that continually rule to act like they have more power than the President of the United States, blocking his ability to do things. It shouldn't be allowed, but it is. And every time you see those judges that block it, it's always someone that was appointed by Obama, appointed by Biden. It has some name you can't even read, like Abu Dhabi, King of the Dhabi, right? It's always a foreigner. It's always someone that's never been in the country for very long, or someone that's not even a citizen for longer than a generation. In other words, they're the first generation. They were groomed, indoctrinated, brought in, and put in that position so they could steal the sovereignty of our nation. And what Chip said was the quiet part out loud. We should get rid of all 435 people, get rid of all 100 senators, and we should start over. When you have stolen elections that go on for 20 years, and we have people that ignore that, and you have people in positions of power that are willing to have conversations with me and off the record say, Joe, we know the elections are fraudulent. We have all the information. The president stands up, gets on a podium, and CNN barks as loud as they can. See, he's just doing that baseless conspiracy theory again. And we haven't even punched him in the mouth. Are we going to? Yeah, I do believe we're going to. Do I think President Trump's going to do it in the next 10 days? Yes, I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten this thing that said that, hey, something is about to happen. And frankly, it has to happen. We can't continue to go down this path and just hope that somewhere along the line we get a better result. We're not going to get a better result. So we're going to talk about the paid agitators in Minnesota today. But I played that because I don't think that the American people on the left, the right, and the middle have a stomach for what we've actually been facing for the last 20 years. It's a slow boil towards absolute destruction. We can see it. We can feel it. And then you have to understand the why. You have this AI, And they talk about the fact that it's going to eliminate 40, 50, 60% of the workforce that won't have to go to work. And then it all makes sense. World Economic Forum makes sense, and you start to put things together. It's hard not to be a conspiracy theorist when everything plays together so perfectly. They tell us what they're going to do, but they don't tell us the symptoms or the reasons why they have to do that, or they feel they have to do that. And a lot of it comes down to a really simple formula, and that is they don't need 8 billion people. They don't even need half a billion. And so they got to find a way to kill people off. So you start looking at what happened in Canada with euthanasia, what happened in the United States with euthanasia, where you have the ability to self-describe suicide. And then let's tie that back to what's happening in Big Pharma. And the fact that you have a pill, and then you can take another pill because you're taking this pill, and this gives you high blood pressure, and this one will give you low blood pressure. So you put it together, and it gives you good blood pressure, and you got these comorbidities that started creeping up over the last 30 or 40 years, and you start looking at what they've been trying to accomplish, and then it all makes sense. Let's make everybody fat, then give them a drug to make them skinny. Let's give them foods like soy products that cut down their testosterone, and let's prescribe them with testosterone. And oh, by the way, that's going to cause cancerous issues, so let's give them all these cancer meds, and let's have these make you feel good, don't do good fundraisers where we fund cancer research and ignore things that have been working for cancer research, and we call that baseless conspiracy theories and horse paste, and it doesn't work, and it's unproven, and there's no real science behind it. And then the people that push the stuff for cancer and other things, like the chemotherapy and all this other stuff, they push it into your veins over and over and over again. It's been around for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. And it's still the same thing that they use. Kills some cancers, but kills the body of the individual. You certainly aren't going to live a long life if you're stuffing that stuff in your bodies. I mean, I look at it and I wish I could unsee it. It is a perfectly orchestrated grift and fraud against the American people. So he's talking, hey, we don't do anything for the American people. Well, the state governments don't either. They don't. But does any of the things that we deal with on a regular basis, if you're a small business and you have to deal with filling out all this paperwork and being the tax bib for the government, or how about the just overburdening tax liability you have on your home, so you have to continue to pay it. You pay it off, you think you're going to pay it off, and then every month you get another bill for $1,500 or $1,800 for property tax. And if you're a business, they make you pay to hire people, and you got to pay whatever city, municipality is, or whatever, a certain VIG just to have the benefit of being able to hire a person inside of your business, inside of their limits. It's a system of slavery. And it's all designed, we never woke up one day and said, I know it really works. Let's give 56 cents on every dollar to the government. And you'd say, Joe, you sound anti-government. I'm not. I'm not anti-government at all. Matter of fact, I am pro-government. I am pro the ability to have representative government in the constitutional republic way of doing things, with transparency, with accountability, with a checks and balance system that allows the people to take a shot at the haves when they do stuff in the representing them that works against the interests of the people. But we don't have that. When you see a corrupt apparatus, you have to just tolerate it. And it doesn't matter how small it is or how big it is. And then, of course, you have the people out there that are trying to justify the position of having all of these big governments all around us. It's like a net that you can't run away from. There is no freedom left in America because everything that they do is run by selected individuals, not elected individuals. And these enforcers, the judges, they just stand up political ideology. I am 0 for 100, maybe 120 people that I've asked over the last week, do you trust the judiciary at all? You trust judges? Just ask random people. And the answer is always no. We are already in a place right now where we think that we have to fight each other. We think that we're the problem. that's the everyday citizen on the street. You're going to solve the problem by killing Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was the only thing that brought sensibility to students where they could think for themselves. He would just tell them, hey, think for yourself. But no, he was turned into, by the media, the bully pulpit, he was turned into this pariah, this racist, this homophobe. And even though they couldn't come up with anything that showed that that's who he was, when he honored the Lord and he said, listen, I just want people to know God. Do you think it stopped? It didn't stop. And as quickly as Charlie died, so did 80% of the work that was being done inside of that environment. I have friends' kids that said, yeah, it's just not the same. Turning Point is like a flash and burn, and then it goes away, and it doesn't have the same fire. And I hope I'm wrong when I said that. I hope that's just the experience of a few kids that go to a few universities. But you don't see evil backing down. Matter of fact, they're doubling down, which means they think it's working. It's too late. President Trump can't get rid of machines and mail-in ballots. Pam Bondi did her job. Todd Blanche did his job. The judges are doing their job and slowing down the apparatus so that we cannot have justice as a society. And I put up that post yesterday, and the post was very simple. It was people support ICE. Most Americans support ICE. Most Americans don't wake up one day saying, you know what I think is a good idea? I think we should support gang members and people that rape and murder people in our country who are not even citizens and have no right to be here. And you got the pitter-patter of the people that walk past being illegal, being in the country illegally. They walk past it to say, oh, they deserve rights, as they trample on the rights of people in your community. It's the same thing that I got all these text messages when I put that up, and they sent me these love letters on Messenger. And this woman goes, you know, I have 5 people in my household, and you'll never make it as governor. And I keep thinking to myself I went back and read it again, and I was like, okay, so they don't want to help black people. They don't want to help poor people. They don't want to eliminate government waste. You're going to vote against this because of your hate for what? For what? Because it'll take away your ability to virtue signal? This is what we're facing right now. We're facing sensibility against the ridiculous and the big lie. And because we gave ridiculous even a seat at the table, that's why we're having to have this conversation to begin with. Boys can be girls, playing boys can be playing in girls' sports. I mean, just the nonsense and the mental masturbation that you have to go through in order to figure out that what you're saying is even remotely normal. You can't even describe what a woman is anymore. And when you do describe what a woman is, it could encompass anything, even a kangaroo. Oh, it looks like that's a woman. I love it when people don't know that I'm on the show and they call me right in the middle of the show. It's always fun. At least I know which friends of mine don't listen to the show or listen to it later. I want to put this up first. I want to go through how rotted it is. And guys, just go ahead and ping me when our guest gets in. I know I don't have a ton of time with the guest. I'll put it up there. Post one. Post one. A1. There we go. So this is what I was talking about before. No, that's not it. That's not A1. But that's interesting. Leave that up. Leave that up. So this is Mustafa A. Kasababa, a Biden-appointed judge, has blocked the federal government from accessing Oregon's voter data. So Jelly Bean Jar, Oregon's in it. Oregon has massive problems with their voter records. They should be working in conjunction with the federal government in order to make sure that they could actually create clean voter rolls. But let me just tell you what's happening in Oregon. And by the way, if you're in any state in this country, I agree on one thing. we need to have people come together and we need to take back our government. And you know who's trying to organize to do that right now? The radical left. So we're going to be left out on the side trying to figure out what's going on when the Insurrection Act is invoked, and I believe it will be because it has to be. People were held hostage in Oregon, held hostage in California, held hostage in Washington. It's of the people, for the people, by the people, but the people can't get access to any of the information. You're not allowed to look at voter rolls. And if you do get access based on open records request, they're like, that'll be $50,000. Oh, see, our people inside the government, they have to put hours towards this, so that's $50,000. And they make you pay to get access to information that should be readily available to them. And they make it so impossible for you to get access to that information because they want to hide that information. So you have to basically go into debt, and there's no telling that you'll actually get the right information or they'll give you all the information. But this judge decided that, hey, look, I'm gonna block that. The federal government, you don't have a right to have it. We are in a civil war right now that's being created by a small group of radical leftists, probably 50 to 75,000. I mean, you're talking about massive arrests that are going to happen across this country. And if you think that's crazy, if you think what I said is absolutely crazy, and if you think that somewhere along the line it's a bridge too far. Well, what do you do when you have foreigner judges, foreigners, who come in, get on the bench, and block a sitting president from having accountability in the states? You tell me where we are when we have radical ideas, including putting books that allow for kids to learn about sex in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. You tell me what parent thinks that that's normal. You tell me what person thinks that's normal. So you want to talk about a bridge too far? The bridge too far went the other way. The bridge too far right now is that our entire country is running away from states that have captured the people. They're running away from them. The amount of people leaving Colorado right now is -3. In other words, 3% of the people it's 97%. 3% is just leaking out. They're leaving. And it would be 50% if they could have some sort of confidence that whatever state they're going into won't be as screwed up as what we have in Colorado. And I'm talking poor people too. I mean, everyone's just trying to get out. I'm talking Democrats trying to leave Colorado. They're like, I can't do business here. Restaurants closing, small businesses breaking rules. And I had a conversation with a small business the other day. He goes, I don't have a choice, Joe. I don't have a choice. I can't survive under their rules. And I was like, brother, you gotta figure out a way. Never walk close to the line. Don't give them an opportunity to come after you. You have to play by the rules, even if it costs you margin, or raise your prices. And he's like, I can't raise my prices because then no one will do business with me. So the person that is actually thriving in this environment right now are independent proprietors that go in and say, okay, I will build a fence for you. Here it is. They don't pay anything. They don't pay unemployment. They don't pay. They are literally cutting out all of the burden costs of a business. And the other businesses that are thriving are hiring contractors to do work on a one-to-one basis. Fiverr is as big as it's ever been when it comes to just getting a little bit of help on the Marcom or the IT side. Why? Because nobody can afford to pay an employee. And now with these stupid laws that they have, I feel like I'm sitting up here telling you what you already know. And it's Friday. I should be giving you lots of hope today. The hope is that President Trump hits the Insurrection Act button and he just basically levels the playing field. That's my hope. And will it be painful at first? Yeah, it will. But can we allow these people to hold us hostage? Judges hold us hostage? Non-elected, selected leaders? What Roy Jones is, what Chip said is absolutely the way we're going to have to get to it. We're going to just start over. New elections. We would never elect any of these people. Nobody would be in office for 20 terms when they can't get anything done. No, why would you? Why would you? So with that said, I want to show you this teacher. This is a teacher in Iowa. This is a teacher. We know the name of the teacher. We'll share that as well. This is the audio of a teacher at Manson Northwest Webster High School, bullying her students and lying to her students. The media is allowed to do it. The radical leftists are allowed to do it. They use the words liar. Man, it has made people so angry that we saw the one guy that was at a rally, he kept putting the microphone in his ear, so the guy beat the hell out of 3 guys. I do not want violence, but I'm telling you right now that the frustration has boiled over. We're already past it. And listen to this teacher. This is a teacher teaching children. Play it.
It's funny, Ben. Why are you laughing? Because that is what has happened. And if you do not process that, you need to process that right now. It is fine if you don't like the fact that she was warning people about ICE being in the neighborhood. That's fine. It is okay for you to not have liked that she was doing that. That's okay. But what you need to understand is that she was told to leave the area. And so she was turning her vehicle away. She waved 2 other vehicles and they were leaving. And she was turning away. And the officer stepped in front of her vehicle, raised his gun, and fired a shot at point blank range into her vehicle. And then as she drove away, he turned and fired 2 more shots at point blank range and shot her in the head. And that could have been you. You think it's funny? Because that could be you, or it could be you. It could be anybody in this room. Any of you. And the moment you think it's okay to shoot a citizen of the United States because they wanted to leave a scene, and keep in mind, she had broken no law. She was simply following orders to leave a scene. The moment you say it is okay to shoot someone for leaving a scene as ordered by law enforcement, then that makes it okay for anybody here to be murdered by law enforcement. That is what you are endorsing. Anybody here. The Manson Police Department can shoot you. Are you okay with that? Are you?
Let me tell you how sick this woman is. First of all, here's who she is. This is the teacher. Give me the phone number for the school, too. Her name is Kim Keller. So Kim Keller is the teacher who screamed and lied to her class about shooting of Renee Good. Kim Keller. This is what the radical left looks like right here. Kim Keller. She undressed a student that she thought was laughing in the classroom. She then stacked onto that student and bullied that student with a lie. Then she used that opportunity to build on that lie. Complete fabrication. Complete fabrication. She was not asked to leave the scene. She did break the law. He did not step in front of the car. He was in front of the car. Her wheels spun. He shot through the windshield because his life was put at risk. And when he was spun around, he fired 2 more shots. He did what any law enforcement officer would do. Now, do I like the fact that she died? No, because she died because of people like Kim Keller. Kim Keller is the type of person that is the one that's responsible for Renee Good being dead. Because she can't tell the truth. Eric Coomer can't tell the truth. Dominion can't tell the truth. Our elected officials can't tell the truth. Everyone just lies about everything. And then when they get mad about it, they decide, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to just create an entire story. We're going to bully and slander and intimidate like she did in that classroom. And when the class didn't respond, because all the parents in this school probably had a conversation with their kids. That probably happened. And you know what the parents didn't do? They didn't say, oh, she was asked to leave the scene. When our children become the target of the propaganda, we have already lost. And the fact that this teacher hasn't been kicked out already is just another testament to the fact that we've accepted that lies are okay to be told, that bullying our children is okay, that shooting Charlie Kirk is okay, that doing the things that they've done over and over and over again to victimize our communities while telling us they're here to help, that all of that is okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. I only have my guest for a half hour, so let me tell you who he is when he comes in. And yeah, look, I'm pretty spun up about this. And look, it's not like I want to get you to where you get to the place where you're like, yeah, let's go. I want you to just recognize the fact that when we gave the ridiculous a breath, when we gave it life, when we debated the ridiculous, this is what you get. It's like the people saying that 2 + 2 = 4. And then you ask them, does 2 + 2 always equal 4? And they're like, well, I'm not sure because the super sky and I mean, we've turned everything into a debate where truth is ambiguous, and it's just not. So Mike Shelby's joining us. He's a former intelligence NCO and contractor. He was with Army Intelligence and did multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's had a lot of experience in high-threat environments. I'd like to hear about that. And he is the founder and CEO of Forward Observer and established a private intelligence firm specializing in threat intelligence, trend analysis, conflict monitoring, civilian preparedness. I wonder if I ever cross paths with them in the Middle East and Africa. We'll find out. But he's going to come in and give us a little bit of a briefing on what we're dealing with right now. I'd like to say that everything's going to be okay. We're going to ask Mike if everything's going to be okay. But I think overall, I think the president has a plan. He wouldn't have plucked Maduro out of Venezuela if there wasn't a plan. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe, how are you? Can you hear me?
I'm good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Great.
We keep talking about the propaganda and all the stuff that we hear in the news every day. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. You've seen it plastered all over your pages. Every time you put up something that's fact, they come back with some nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the information operations are in full swing, for sure.
All right. So how do we overcome that? How do we have conversations with people in our community when they're so entrenched in the lie?
Sure. Well, a lot of it, I think, comes down to having personal authority, having legitimacy and credibility in who you are as a neighbor. So forget your title or who you are or what you were, just as a neighbor. And if your neighbors look at you with, if you have credibility and they look at you as an authority, then I think you're a far better person to deliver the message than anyone else. Because really, I mean, we're talking about building interpersonal relationships with people. And anytime you build trust over a long period of time and everything you do carries credibility and legitimacy, people will naturally listen to you. They may not like what you say. They may not agree with you, but you're at least providing some kind of counterfactual or counter effort to what they're being fed through the news or whatever they're paying attention to.
Do you think some of the animosity or animus that we see that gets pushed across from people in communities has more to do with the fact that they don't feel like what they say matters? So you're almost in this nervous environment where you're trying to figure out how it's going to adversely affect your family, both physically and mentally. And do you think that plays a part in this, where they're just trying to figure out how they can pick a side?
Yeah, I think so. I forget who said it, but they said effectively, thinking is really hard, and that's why most people don't do it. And they hear something on the news and they say, "Oh, that sounds really good," and then they parrot that on social media or with other conversations. And then the problem is when you come to believe these sorts of things, it almost becomes like your personality. It's like part of your identity, And then it's mentally and emotionally painful for you to admit you're wrong. And that's why so few people do it. So I think one of the challenges is, how do we approach this instead of being combative and argumentative? How do we lead these people down the path of understanding where they're mistaken? If that makes sense.
Yeah, so it does make sense, but we now have these factions, and there's like 25 different factions on each side of the aisle, and then you have this ambiguity as to where the aisle really sits. If you were to walk into Congress, you never know. They're fist bumping each other and having conversations behind closed doors, and then when they get out, they act like they're the enemy to each other. So it's almost like this theater, and so I think people are desensitized to the fact that they feel betrayed all the time. And there doesn't seem to be any meat left on the bone for the people on either side of the aisle. So everyone is in this constant, perpetual state of who's doing this to me, who's stabbing me, and so we know that that is an information operation. But ultimately, then what's the goal? What's the outcome that they're looking for? Because if they're looking for societal collapse, they're doing a pretty good job.
Mm. Well, it's Jared Diamond, and say what you want about Jared Diamond, but he was right in this regard. I think it's the book he writes this in his book called Collapse, which you can discount 90% of whatever's in that book. But he was right about one thing, and that is when the elites and the leaders of a society or civilization, when they are insulated from the effects of their decisions, when they don't feel the consequences of their negative decisions, you get civilizational or societal collapse. Because there's no negative feedback loop. There's nothing they're not feeling the pain from their decisions, and everyone else is. And they get in this loop, and we're pretty much doomed to something far worse. And I think, I'm not sure if that's exactly where we are now, but the uniparty stuff where, it's like these Republicans, they just went back in the House and they voted to give how many ever hundreds of millions of dollars to the National Endowment for Democracy. And that's something that we voted against. We said, we don't want to do this anymore. We don't want to give them any more money. And Republicans turned around and did it again. So maybe there is some level of getting in a negative feedback loop where I don't know what it is, Joe. I guess it's go along to get along politics, just uniparty stuff.
All right, let's talk about the other side, that they're building alliances to create this information warfare against politicians, President Trump. They've used this lawfare system against people to shut them down. Obviously, I'm going to go back to Donald Trump. I could talk about Roger Stone, Mike Flynn. I mean, the list is long of the tactics of persecution, even the J6ers. We could say that. But now they've taken even a step further inside of the country. So now they're building entire NGOs to fund lawfare against influencers who are out talking about how bad some of these people are lying.
Mm. Well, we know the federal government does this. We know that the military and other intelligence agencies do this abroad. And, I guess the question is, how much of USAID money was geared towards doing this domestically with their own taxpayer dollars? And then now how much of it, as they're replumbing their financial system back to private donors here, how much are they doing this domestically?
Well, even if they're plumbing it back to private donors, they just get it through contracts at the state level through some of these captured states, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the State Department had this thing called the Global Engagement Center, and that's effectively what they were doing. And I believe that was shut down. They may have brought it back. I don't recall exactly, but there are still elements within the government that's doing this, just like the DOJ program, the Community Relations Service, or whatever it was called. You know what I'm talking about? Where basically the DOJ would go to these victims' families, and they say, "Oh, don't say anything incendiary. Don't be mad. Just let's sweep this under the rug," and whatever they're doing, basically to not make any kind of not so the public wouldn't be as angry about what happened. And all these things where these the Molly Tibbetts of the country where she was murdered by an illegal alien, and the parents come out and say, well, we forgive him, all that stuff. From that I know of, some of that stuff absolutely was happening by this Community Relations Service or whatever it's called, DOJ. And I think they were just refunded. I think the House just gave them millions or hundreds of millions of more dollars also.
Well, let me run a theory by you, because I know that your experience in high threat environments kind of gives you that eagle eye, right? You can see, oh, I see this is repeating itself. The strategies are typically the same. They're just reskinned, a different skin on the pig, right? We look at the state by states specifically that have their own autonomy when it comes to elections, yet they're using the ERIC system, they're tied together, they won't give up voter rolls. If you were trying to capture a country, if you were trying to do that, a country like the United States, where you have nation states inside of the nation, you would have to do it one by one, state by state, capture those states in order to make sure that you'd have enough density, correct?
Joe, I'm not sure I follow.
If you captured California, let's hypothetically say that.
Well, what kind of capture are you talking about? Like elite capture or physically?
Leadership capture. No bullets fired.
Okay, elite capture. Okay.
Yeah. So showing that the country is going in one, or the state is going in one direction, when if you were to walk out on the street and have conversations with real people, you'd be hard pressed to find that type of ideology that was acceptable or accepted, right? Mm-hmm. So you'd have to do that in order to capture the United States. You'd have to have a proper amount of density in certain states and be able to capture the leadership first, correct?
Yeah, you would have to develop a basically national consensus around whatever it is you're trying to do, and you capture elites and institutions, and then you get them to push that message as well.
Okay, so we look at what's happened in the United States, and I'm going to draw some parallels to some of the things that have happened in other countries. We can look at Iran. When you talk to most people in Iran, they don't support the Ayatollah. They don't support the way the country is being run. I would say it's probably 90% don't support it. We look at what's happened in the United States, and there's this huge amount of friction, and we use social containers or walled gardens in order to push messaging. And inside of those walled gardens, you have millions of bots that are out there pushing messaging to look like they're real people, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So in essence, we can't get to the bottom of the barrel. You can't see the bottom because it's filled up with the opinions of people that don't even exist.
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the things that the Global Engagement Center, what at least was doing and maybe still is doing. You know, they called it counter narrative or counter disinformation that they're doing online. And, some of it was going into forums and on social media and finding these accounts that were saying things that were negative towards the United States. And then, yeah, you might have this bot swarm of people, and we still see this with NATO does this also, of all these bot accounts jumping on these threads and explaining why they're wrong and providing counterfactuals or providing counter information. And they call it combating disinformation. But, as you know, Joe, the problem is they do that when you present factual information as well.
Okay, so then how do we fight that? I mean, you look at the things that were done in, one of my friends built the Twitter of Afghanistan, right? They launched it over there, and that was done in the mid-2000s, right? And it was highly effective in changing some of the mindsets of people that were in Afghanistan, right, after we went in 2002. So we knew it worked, right? So we look at what's happening in the United States. Do you think that we're at risk now of, based on what you've seen overseas and seen in other countries, do you think we're at risk at the potential collapse inside of the United States?
Well, Joe, maybe there's a case to be made that we're already in a collapse. I mean, you just look at pictures from the 1990s, and you compare it today. Look at the cities, you look at the people, you look at the conditions, and it's just a night and day difference. I mean, I think we would all be horrified if we, even when we went back to 2000, you said, by the way, this is what Minneapolis in 2025 is going to look, or 26 is going to look like. I think we'd be scared, like extremely horrified. And so I guess it depends, what I think we are experiencing already some form of collapse. It has not collapsed to zero, but things rarely do. But even when empires collapse, it's like they don't just disappear. Those people aren't all killed. There's just it's either subsumed by some internal force like barbarians inside the gates, or it's conquered by a rival power. And I think we may be on the way. I think we are heading towards some kind of national cataclysmic event here, because our national consensus is breaking down. Elite consensus is breaking down. Political consensus is breaking down. Economic consensus is breaking down. Are we a socialist country? Or are we a capitalist country? What is the future of this? What kind of political system do we have? Should we abolish the Electoral College? Should we expand the Supreme Court? I mean, those are things that were national consensus for decades, if not centuries. And now all of a sudden, we have a fracture in the consensus, and we have a split in the elites, between elites and counter elites, and they have diametrically opposing visions for the future of this country. Those are the kind of the structural indicators that you look for when you ask yourself, is this country going to experience an internal domestic conflict or not?
Well, it's the barometer for the country to correct. If you look at the 80s, because the 80s were tumultuous when Reagan took it over from Carter, and you could argue that the 70s it was experiencing the same sort of decline that we see happening today. The 70s were that same similar decline across the world, or across the country. And we were able to have Reagan come in and save it. He had 8 years, pushed it in a different direction. And then you could argue that 8 years created a trajectory that the people were not going to reject very easily. So they had to come up with a new battle plan in order to kind of lull it back into this place where they could take over this capitalistic environment. And whether we're talking about foreign and or domestic enemies that are inside of our country that say, look, we want to take it a different direction. Communism didn't disappear after World War II. It went underground, right? And it stayed inside of our education institutions nearly exclusively. So now as we look forward to, where we are today, I mean, you could argue that if you elections used to be the counterbalance for people. They would all get together and say, look, these people are idiots. We really need a different direction. And they would stick with that direction even if it was difficult. But then you have the chatter now of the media in your ear, and you have this false and these lies that are being told. Even when you have progress, you'll never be able to see it. So as we get closer to what has to be a powder keg environment or powder keg event, I think that's really gets to the essence of the book that you wrote, right? And how people in their own communities can build these alliances that can help them survive it. Because I don't think there's any doubt that we're headed towards something. I just don't know what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, yeah, no one does. Unfortunately, none of us has a crystal ball. But I think it's safe to assume that we're in a period of decadal, at least, low-intensity conflict. So it's conflict beneath the threshold of conventional war. We're not going to be flying B-52s against each other. But it also exists above routine, peaceful competition. And so these are things like violent social movements, terrorism, insurgency, popular revolutions, color revolutions. So, yeah, what I try to stress in the book, it's called the Area Intelligence Handbook, is looking at your local indicators, finding those local militant groups, the local radical and revolutionary groups who exist in your area, and getting a really good beat on them so we can set up news alerts for them and follow their social media accounts, and even attend political meetings. Like, I've been stressing everyone, there's something like, I think 560 protests this weekend, and they're all across the country. Get out and go to those protests. Just look at previous protests in the area, look at pictures, see who's there, how they're dressed, and I go to TJ Maxx or Goodwill and go buy some of the clothes so that you can blend in with these people, and go down there and stroll around. And they're going to be handing out literature and stickers and signs, and just go collect all that stuff that you can and just mingle and talk to people and get a sense of who these people are. Because when we do get into a period potentially of organized political violence, this stuff is just not going to materialize out of the ether. It's going to come from people. And I'd say I live in I live in Central Texas. It's very red. My county went for 25 or 30 points for Trump. And so we're like roughly 65% Trump. But I'll tell you, in our largest city, I went to the last No Kings protest back in October, and there's not just the Democrat Party. There's Democratic Socialists of America. there was the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is an actual revolutionary political party, and they were handing out pamphlets and giving people pictures of QR codes to go online, and so these revolutionary parties were actively recruiting these, mostly blue-haired boomer Democrats, but still, I did not realize PSL was in my area. I would not have known that had I not gone down to that protest. So everything's got to be local. Everyone has this big focus on what Congress is doing and what Xi Jinping is doing, and all these other big kind of national strategic level events, that's super important. But at the end of the day, Xi Jinping's not going to be knocking on my door. It's going to be a local Antifa. So really, we have to get local in our intelligence collection, because those are the things that are going to affect us directly.
So do we build counterinsurgency, so to speak,
100%
intelligence environments? And what does that look? And what does that look like? And how do you suppose that we could fund those types of operations?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you fund it and still stay pure to it too? Right? I mean, there's two sides. Of
it. Most of the stuff, it's not, what we do is not expensive. It's time expensive. Yeah. But so the first thing that I think everyone really needs to understand is, whenever you're looking at these forms of low intensity conflict, let's just take an insurgency. There are 3 phases of a Maoist insurgency, and whatever phase the insurgency is at, you have to counter that. So if they're in the organizing phase, you have to counter organize against them. And the earlier phases of an insurgency are far easier to defeat than latter phases. Typically, once they get to the breakout of armed political violence, like organized political violence, coordinated team sports, like groups of people shooting, I'm maybe some places get there. I'm still not sure on exactly what to expect there. But the point is, they're still in this early phase, and so they're still organizing, and so we have to be counter organizing. So you think about this like, well, maybe not an analogy, but just like PSL and DSA were going to these protests to recruit, what are they doing? They're trying to agitate and get people angry and realize that, sorry, voting for Kamala Harris is not going to fix your problems. She's still a capitalist or whatever they call her. I mean, all these people that we call communists, like Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, they're still way to the right of groups like PSL. So, but they're recruiting. And so, we kind of need to do that as well. So I recommend starting a vehicle that maybe that's a county political group, and maybe that, you support grassroots candidates, but you use that as a vehicle to meet people and build relationships with people. I mean, this is community organizing 101. Find an issue. Another thing you can do is find an issue locally. And what all these left-wing organizing groups do, they basically have a rubric of 3 different things. Find an issue that's widely felt. So it's felt by a lot of people in your local level. Don't even worry about Congress, or don't worry about China or whatever. Just find something local. Maybe it's potholes. Maybe it's a local crime issue. Maybe it's a local corruption issue. Maybe it's a drag queen story hour. Whatever's going on in your neighborhood. And if you don't know, break open a newspaper and start watching local news. And so find one of those issues that you care about and maybe your neighbors care about. So is it widely felt? Number 2, is it deeply felt? So the things, drag queen story hour, a lot of parents with small children really care about pornographic material in their children's school library. Maybe that's an issue that you can organize around. So that's widely felt. There's going to be a lot of parents in my county who care about that. They're going to care about it very deeply. And then finally, is it winnable? Widely felt, deeply felt, winnable. Can we make a difference? If we get 500 people and go down and protest the school board, or go protest at or courthouse or wherever we're going to protest, basically you've got to find the executive authority who can make the decision to pull those books from the shelves, and then that's where you apply your leverage. That's what you throw your public support or public pressure campaign at. So I would say do things like that. And Joe, it takes a lot of work. It's extremely time intensive, and there's a certain level of leadership that you have to exhibit, because you have to lead people, and then a certain level of organization as well. So getting people to come to meetings, and people have rolled their eyes like, oh, geez, another hour-long meeting. But once you start a group like that,
They do roll their eyes.
They do. And you know why?
What do we do when we leave here?
That's right. And you know why they do that? Because they sit around for an hour and it's a BS session or it's a gripe session and nothing ever gets done. But when you start choosing targets, and I'm talking about public pressure campaigns, and when you start choosing targets and taking scalps, people sign up because they say, those guys are winners. Those guys get stuff done. I'm not going to waste my time or my money when I go support these guys. And so that's what we've got to start doing at the local level. And really, we've got to turn these areas into strategic bases. I mean, really hard targets for the left to organize. And so and if you're in a city like Chicago, I'm sorry, good luck.
I love the fact you said take scalps. Look, here's the reality, though. There are people on the left. I say left. There are Democrats. They feel the same way we do. They feel like they're behind enemy lines. They're like, they look around and they're like, I used to be what I thought was, a liberal, and actually y'all are nuts. I hear it every day from guys that, worked in the NAACP, or worked in some of these, the SPLA and organizations that you would think that would align with them, right? I would ask them questions like, well, how could you work for that organization? And they go, I don't know. Mm-hmm. So there is a part of society that the reason why they're putting this D and this R on it, because it doesn't really matter. We have Republicans that basically act as bad as the radical left, that are truly searching for some sort of semblance of reality.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, gaining defections from the other side. I mean, that's what the left does to the right all the time. I mean, that's what they do to the administration. That's what they do to public officials all the time. Is find an issue that they can fracture the base, fracture the MAGA base, fracture the elite support. We talk about color revolution and stuff. That's what they're trying to do. Is encourage elite defections and encourage institutional defections away from the Trump administration, so that those people don't want to be associated anymore. And then you start to remove the support and power of the administration. And then, broadly, that's the color revolution strategy. And we're seeing it play out right now.
All right. So what you said is actually really interesting, because you said pick targets. I think one of the other problems we have, and something that's in your assessment, is that we don't stay on a subject long enough. We're like, this is wrong. What's next? What else is wrong? It's almost like we have ADHD all the time, right? Oh, yes, I found it. Okay. And then nobody does anything with it. So we're like, oh, okay, let's go over here. I found it again. Oh, so you're always disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I see this on social media a lot as well. We get riled up about something that happened on the other side of the country. And, it's fine to have righteous anger about that stuff, but you being righteously angry doesn't do anything. Like, we got to funnel that into local action. And so that's the big thing. And you're right. It's like, I went to a Tea Party meeting last night, and there's like 15 people there. And the leader of that meeting said, oh, nobody cares because Trump won, and now we won, and our guy's in, and now we don't have to do anything anymore. I know. Well, it's a leadership issue. I mean, you have to lead this group, because it's not just winning a battle. Like, if you just win a battle and go home, you're going to lose the war. Like, it's a campaign. You got to stay in the fight.
I'm actually encouraged by this. I have aha moments, because in business, I work the problem, and I will go after a problem. And personally, I talk about elections all the time. I talked about it with you. I just literally talk about it. I can't get it out of my head, because I know what is right, what is wrong. I know how they stole elections. And so I continually talk about it. I stay very focused. I know I have ADHD. But I do have that same propensity to be like, I was doing it before you got on. Yeah, this is not going to work out. If we don't solve this, we're completely finished. And I'm getting a text from a friend who said, Joe, you can't say that Colorado's lost. You have to say that Colorado went down this path, and now we have to figure out a way to get it off that path, right? Work the problem. So I do appreciate what you said, because frankly, I think I needed to hear it. I think other people needed to hear it too.
Well, I'm happy to help. And, appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Well, that leads me to this. We're going to do what Mike just said. We're going to actually have a meeting. So we'll set a meeting in 2 weeks in Colorado. I'll tell you where it is, and we'll have a debrief, and then we'll just get people to do things. We did this years ago, and then we fell across to just meetings. And I agree that meetings leadership is what causes the puttering out of a mission. So, yeah. Mike, thanks for joining us, brother. I appreciate it. How do people follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter or X mainly at Gray Zone Intel. That's gray with an A, Gray Zone Intel.
Awesome.
Right
Thanks
there.
for all the work you're doing, brother. I appreciate you very much.
All right, Joe. Thank you.
I
Have a
love
great
that
afternoon.
picture on your X, by the way.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's clown world summed up in one picture. Yeah.
All right. God bless you, brother. Take care.
All right. You too. Thank you.
I didn't even think about it. You know, there's a lot of work that personally I like to do. So I like to dig into things. And so who wants to do that? If you're in Colorado, put the comments up real quick so I can see it. If you're in Colorado, who wants to be a part of doing some cool stuff? Who wants to take scalps and do some intelligence? Just do some crawling. Anybody? If you're in a different state, I can't help you right now. I gotta stick around here to run for this governor stuff. But imagine, I remember when Joe went by Joe Otto. I remember that too. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Imagine what we could accomplish if we actually focused in on it. We focused in on the things that we could do in order to make sure that we had proper intelligence. I think we could do a lot. I said, how do you fund it? Because everyone that's ever come to me has said, Joe, will you give me this or will you give me that? And it becomes very tiring because then I become, I'd volunteer for any scalp hunting I can do from Arizona. I know you would, Chris. Jody from FEC, it's good to see you. All right, let's do that. Let's do that. I'm sitting here putting it out there to the radical left. I know they watch me. And this is why I think they realize that they shut me up. It's like I can't stop. I'm like a dog with a bone. And imagine if I didn't just have to get told by Mike that, hey, maybe if you got people to come to a meeting and be like, all right, you guys are going to go follow this guy around and we're going to find targets. And I got a couple that I need to find like right now. So my town has 7,500 people. We didn't know that it was moved until we drove past it at a yellow police tape and surrounded by cops and tax dollars at work. What are they doing? Oh, a drag show. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we could go to drag shows. We can infiltrate PSL meetings. We bring that information back. We then report it back to the group. The problem is that you got to loose lips sink ships. And there's two issues that we have. One, we're as loyal as a poodle. We are fair. We literally are fair weather folks. I mean, loyalty is not something that some people are very good at. And how do I know that? Well, I got the scars to prove it. And just yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone who didn't like someone else. I had someone on here. I had Adam Dorito on here. I went through all of these different files. I have other people that have told me, you know, don't support Adam, don't support Adam. You need to have all this information. And I go, oh my gosh. Our entire side tries to drag people through the mud. And then when you start asking those people questions, and I'm not talking about Adam or anyone else, I'm just talking about holistically, we start asking questions. We have groups of people who are incredibly good at just trying to destroy people. That's their whole mission. And they say they're on our side. But yesterday, I spent time with a few people, and I called one up and I was like, I can't believe you would say that about this person. You guys need to get together and work it out. And they're like, oh, no, she's bad. And I went, no, she's not. No, she's not. She has a big mouth and she uses it quite often. I mean, I talked to Peg from Colorado quite often. And we were talking about some things that she wants to do in Colorado. And I was like, Peg, she didn't get along with someone, Dave Williams. I'm not, who ran for the Colorado GOP. And I would constantly be trying to figure out how to get them to play ball together because Dave would kind of just say something stupid, but it didn't take much. It was like a little itty bitty fuse. And if you went off in the wrong direction by a quarter inch, man, you were the enemy. And that basically disenfranchised all the people that really were trying to work but didn't want the drama. If they wanted drama, they wanted it to be showing up and taking scalps. That's what they wanted. So we haven't figured out a way to get through that. So I want to go through some other stuff, but we're going to come back to this. I actually think it's a brilliant idea. I think we should get people in our community to come together. It's a good way to do it, and we'll just identify targets. You imagine how much the left would go crazy if we did that? I think that'd be crazy. You guys can work under the campaign. You can go hang out with Bennett and see what he's doing in his campaign. All right, let's talk about some more embarrassing things that the left is doing. This is why you know that most people just do not support what the left is doing. They don't support these Democrats. Take a look at this. This is the Democrat-controlled Colorado Senate. This is normal. This is a normal day in opening up the Colorado Senate in Colorado. Play it. So if you're wondering what that was an interpretive dance for the Black National Anthem. There's only one national anthem, and it should be against the law, and it should be against any part of what we do as a country to basically walk past the national anthem and start replacing it or reconstituting something over top of that. But then we have the more going on in Colorado. We have more. Now, keep in mind, President Trump is in office, and there's a lot of bad things and bad people doing bad things because they have captured these states. In Colorado, they're building a Wuhan-style bat lab. Play it.
Senators are sounding the alarm on what critics are calling the Wuhan West right here in America. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa and Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona just sent a fiery letter to NIH Director Jay Bhattacharya demanding he immediately slash funding for a controversial bat virus lab at Colorado State University. And citing investigations by the White Coat Waste Project, they're highlighting nearly $13 million in taxpayer dollars already poured into this facility. Well, joining us now is Justin Goodman from the White Coat Waste Project. Justin, for our viewers just hearing about this, can you walk us through what White Coat Waste first uncovered about the Colorado State University Bat Lab back in 2023 and why you've called it Wuhan West on U.S. soil?
Absolutely, Dana. Thanks for having us. The exact same people who were behind the gain-of-function disaster in Wuhan that the Trump administration, even agencies under the Biden administration believe caused COVID, are setting up a bat lab here on U.S. soil with funding from Dr. Fauci. EcoHealth Alliance, who funneled USAID and NIH tax dollars to the Wuhan lab, conceived of this bat lab right after the pandemic. They said, we want to start a new bat lab in the United States, import bats from Asia, and do coronavirus, Ebola, Nipah, and other experiments on those bats, breed them here, and ship them around the country. So that's where we got the name Wuhan West. It's, taking the same mistakes we made in Asia, in China, and bringing them to U.S. soil. And it's a recipe for disaster right out of Dr. Fauci's cookbook. Unfortunately, in 2024, Jay Bhattacharya publicly said that he thought this project was a mistake and had no upside. Those are his exact words. Unfortunately, come September 2025, just a few months ago, under Dr. Bhattacharya, the NIH gave this Colorado Bat Lab another $2.1 million to help get it up and running and start breeding bats for these dangerous experiments right here in the United States.
How do we not get rid of this? And this is why I say that of the people, for the people, by the people. Which part? Maybe it's the tollways. You want that. No, we don't want that. Property tax. You don't want to own your property. You want to rent it from the government. How about the death tax? And if that's not enough, if you're a parent in the state of Colorado, they want to pass a bill. They want to pass a bill right now to take your children away from you if the parents will not trans them. Play it.
Day one of the Colorado legislative session, and already the radical socialists who hate parents and want to have government take control of our kids have already introduced Senate Bill 26-018, which they call Legal Protections for the Dignity of Minors. What this bill does is it allows kids to legally change their names in secret, and if parents are not willing to go along with transing their kids, it gives the courts license to consider that in parenting time and decision-making authority. So in layman's terms, if you won't trans your kid, the state is going to take them from you. I said last year when House Bill 1312 was being run and they struck the language about coercive control that they were just going to bring it back next session, that they are determined to strip children away from their parents who will not trans them. They're doing it here. Day one, Colorado, get ready. It's time to show up and fight back.
You shouldn't have to fight back. You shouldn't have to fight back like this. So our society was never designed to have to spend all of your time fighting against tyrannical rule and oversight in our state. It was never designed to have extra excise taxes and stealing your money and handing it over to special interests. And if that's not enough, let's take a look at this. This is a pamphlet on how to set up a charity in the Colorado State Secretary of State's office that is in all Arabic. Why? Why in the world would you have pamphlets for foreigners inside of Colorado's Secretary of State office to set up a charity? We talk about Somalia. Let me tell you what I uncovered years ago. And I didn't think about it until all the stuff came out with Somalia. I went to go visit a Muslim man. We were working on a translation of the Gospels from Aramaic to Arabic, so that it didn't go pass through any sort of translations of Greek or Hebrew, any of that, none of that. It went straight from Aramaic to Arabic. And so Muslims would accept the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, maybe Acts. The Gospels, they would accept it because it became the Word of God. So they believed that the Bible is also the Word of God. And so I met this man who was an imam, and at his house. And I went to his house, and from his house, he had 5 wives. I thought it was really strange. But he didn't have 5 wives in one home. He had 5 wives in 5 homes. And this is right off Parker Road. And I've talked a little about this, and I said, I'm not going to talk about this story because, I was friends with this man. He was actually a good dude. From my standpoint, it didn't make sense. But then I started to go back and think about the things that I saw when I was there. And so I walked from one house to the next house to the next house. And we walked, I think, 3 of the 5 homes, and his wives lived in these homes. And I think he had 20 kids. I'm not exaggerating. 20 kids. Like 4 with 1, 3 with 1, 5 with 1. 20 kids. And he got subsistence. He got free food, he got free housing, he got all this stuff. And he wasn't an American. So you have the Secretary of State's office is putting out pamphlets how to create a charity so that the state can give money to those charities so that it can be used as a battering ram against the people in Colorado. Take their tax dollars and funnel it over here so that these charities then can funnel the money back into things that they want done. So in other words, I send $3 million in, you smurf out $500,000 to help us get elected, to help us basically grift off the system. That's why they have this in the Secretary of State's office. And we know it's happening, which is why I say if we don't sign the Insurrection Act and get on this, we're gonna have massive problems. But the problem is that too many Republicans are in on it too. So let's talk about this. I want to put this up here. And we talked a little bit about this. Someone decided to do a report on it, and then I think our guests are in.
Just Juan.
Is Juan's here?
Juan is in.
Oh, let's not waste any time. Let's bring Juan in. But let's play this real video real quick. This is a breakdown of the left being silent about Dakara. Play it.
Now, y'all see this pretty young lady right here? Right there. That young lady went by the name of Dakara Thompson. Now, at 19 years old, Dakara had her life taken from her by a man who was not supposed to be in her country to begin with. It gets worse. Turns out that Dakara, at 19 years old, was targeted, was chased down, was brutally before she was left for dead by this guy right here, who was not supposed to be in our country to begin with. Her blood is on the Democratic Party's hands because this is what they've been fighting for while ignoring that.
When I tell you that the left is afraid of me in this governor's race, they are afraid of me in a big way. And they're afraid of me because they can say whatever they want. But this black dude gets it. See, black people that are in this country, you have the people that are the loudmouths that hang out with the PSL people and the Antifa. You have them, right? You have people that are in that environment. But a vast majority of the people that were in that environment, they feel betrayed. And so we're going to get to a place, go ahead and bring Juan on. We're going to get to a place where running for governor is not about running for governor. It's about how do we solve the problems that we're in. Juan, welcome to the show, brother. It's good to see you.
Hey, I'm familiar with that story, and I think that this gentleman did a fantastic job of articulating the problem in this, anti-ICE environment. Dakara's story needs to be told and retold. What a beautiful, you can tell just by the picture, she was somebody that had a life about her, an aura about her that was just beauty. And I think that this brother articulating this, bringing it to people's minds, it does a service to her memory and also the next potential victims of these people. This is why we're having to go door to door and root out people that are here through frauds. And, it's just the way it is. You have to clean everything out and start over on those people that were brought here under fraudulent circumstances to displace us as a people. And then we start over and let people in that want to be American and Americanized. And that's just the way it is. Heart goes out to her family, but I love that this gentleman said exactly what he said, the way he did it. And you know what? The other thing is this. He didn't distract from her memory, her history with a bunch of vitriol. He just had to point out a couple of key facts, and there you go. And he was very respectful. I hat tip to this gentleman for what he did.
Yeah, but Juan, this is a story. This is the same story we have every day. This is not a news story. I mean, you have people that have been victimized all over the country by people that shouldn't be here, that are here illegally. You have the left that's talking about the fact that we have to stand up for gang members and try to paint them as poster children for good, when they've done absolutely horrible things. Then they create these stories that aren't true. I mean, we're not playing a propaganda war with. There's no truth to what they say, and yet people in our communities are being victimized. But now we're separated by this R and this D.
Well, it is a problem with the R&D. It is about, are you operating as an American or not? And I hear, there's a crowd out there that, they try to get my ear, and many of them are even, I would consider them friends, but they're misguided, who are trying to portray what's happening, for example, let's say up in Minnesota and other places, as Nazi-esque. No, we're in a wartime condition. These people that are here were weaponized and sent in here. When you hear the people out of Honduras, Venezuela, other countries similar, Somalia, etc., they were sent here on a mission to displace this population and to cause chaos and mayhem and fear. To usher in, from a globalista standpoint, creating a much more a police state, but served these globalistas' purposes, not the best interests of Americans. And they want the fear and the torment and drama. What we're doing is getting ahead of it by going in and yarding these people in before they get there. And by the way, I was at the inauguration this year.
Yeah.
This last year, as President Trump came in, and within minutes of Trump being sworn in, within the first 15 minutes at the inauguration, I was getting texts from military personnel who are friends of mine, not just one, but multiple, who said, I just got orders to report. And what were they doing? They ended up being the support personnel for operations to go pick up people that Trump then signed in the orders as terrorists, who were gang leaders on U.S. soil. And then just over the next few days, you heard about these gang leaders getting picked up in various parts of the country. And then over the next weeks afterwards, you heard about vans being stopped, not just one, but a couple different times, vehicles where they had tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition that had been bought at gun stores, and they were going to Colorado, they were going to Michigan and Minneapolis and things like that. Well, where did the information that led to those apprehensions of those vans coming across country come from? It came because we got those gang leaders in, started interrogating them, got information on the movement, and then got some of their gang members. We headed off what these people wanted, which was a civil war in America to a large extent. There's civil unrest, but what was planned for us and what they're actually getting away with is two different things. We have thus far averted civil war in America. They want civil war. And part of the thing in going after hurting, destroying lives like it is to create this angst that we would react in a lawless way as a people, as opposed to going in and taking these people into custody and letting them face justice, as opposed to just having, lynchings, which is what the people behind the scenes actually want.
I don't want lynchings. I want accountability. I want military tribunals. I want 50,000 people arrested. I don't think you are going to get to the bottom of this barrel until you have mass arrests.
That's right. And let me add this. Hold on, Joe. Let me add this one thing. We're supporting a lawful justice system. At some level, you don't have enough law enforcement to accomplish what needs to be accomplished here.
Right.
And also, these people were weaponized. They have arms like that. That's why military backup and support in this situation, this is an invasion. So those people in our community who may be screaming bloody murder, this is overreach, and no, the attack here is not just internal. This is an external attack. You're just seeing the players on the soil here. We've been invaded. The only appropriate response is not to put law enforcement at risk or to deal with this even as a policing issue. It is not a policing issue merely. This is an attack that was orchestrated from outside the U.S. And so it requires, literally a militarized response. Sorry, but that's the way it is. So, and Colorado is front and center in some of these attacks. I mean, it's just, Tren de Aragua, you had the apartments up there in Colorado, and the government wasn't going to stop them. They were taking over places. Nobody's stopping them. What the hell is your problem?
Well, and we keep walking through all the smaller pieces to this. Well, we keep looking at the elections and Tina's case specifically, which I'm very keen on specifically. Tina Peters just had an appeals case here in Colorado, and the Secretary of State is doubling down. These radical leftists who have created these stories that aren't true. I mean, Tina Peters was not tried for or charged with accessing the machines, yet they said that she had unauthorized access. And I think Tina could sue them for defamation because it never happened. But beyond that, they're still using these same stories, and I'm miffed as to why there hasn't been arrests yet. And I was hoping maybe you could tell me.
Well, okay. Let's start out with Tina. Where I think we have to kind of throw into this equation, what's happening in America, what's happening across the world is bigger than just Tina. And Tina would be the first one, as painful as it is for her to be incarcerated the way she is, the way she's been treated. The health issues are a very big concern for us. She would not want her freedom at the expense of what she's already put her life into, which is this bigger thing. Okay, this election stuff, this fraudulent vote stuff. Within that context, let me use an example. We all know that the election stuff is tied to the machines, which are tied to Venezuela, which is tied to the gangs out of Venezuela, which is tied to not just Maduro, but a globalist operation, including intelligence agencies, including our own intelligence agency personnel involved in this huge, broad global scam. It wasn't just about America having its election overturned with fraudulent votes. It was 7,100 or 71 other countries plus the United States
that
had votes that were frauded and people put into office through fraud. So with that in mind, Tina is a hinge. Big doors turn on tiny hinges. In this global chess game, chess at 5 levels, Tina is a critical pawn in the game. And when Tina gets free, and all sides know this, not just two sides, all sides know this. Remember, chess at 5 levels. When Tina is free and she's out talking again, she goes from pawn to queen. When a pawn crosses the board and reaches the far side of the board intact, they become a queen with that's the most powerful player on the board. As far as latitude, range, everything else, that's the most dangerous player on the board while protecting the king. Tina will be in an outstanding position in this ongoing, we know it as a game, a strategy game, etc. But in this case, it's real. It's like watching a James Bond film and you see Spectre with all the various people there representing all the criminal interests, the business, the prostitution, vote fraud, shipping, banking, whatever it could be. And there's this huge Spectre organization with reach everywhere, and their imagery is of the octopus.
Yeah.
We're living a real movie. This is Casino Royale for planet Earth, and Tina is a component in this game. Trump has held in playing that move for whatever reason, and I would compare it in this way. When we heard about what happened with Maduro, the agreement to go forward. Remember, there was months of training. They built literally a replica of his house and property where he was at, in finest detail. They even had, information on the dog, what the dog ate, what food is coming in, all sorts of things, while they worked out their actual plan, what they were going to do. And remember, Maduro was protected by Cuban intelligence, not just Cuban security people. Cuban intelligence operatives with Chinese assistance, satellite oversight into the whole region. This was a much more complex thing than most people even begin to realize. Trump gave the go to go apprehend Maduro. But you know what? It didn't happen that day. Didn't happen the next day. Didn't happen days later, because several things had to line up for it to go, and it was over 2 weeks later that everything lined up. President Trump got the call, things are in alignment, everything's ready to go. Do we have your permission to go? We gave him the go code, and everything started to move. That was 2.5 weeks later than the original plan. Trump was going to give America a Christmas present with the starting this whole thing coming into Christmas, and it didn't happen. Why? Because of weather? That's what you've heard publicly, and a number of other related features, that it just wasn't quite the right moment. If you look at Tina's situation, because Tina's situation within the vote, within the electronics, the machine, the enemies that were going after that have attacked America through a fraudulent vote, a lot of that pivots off of this first big play, which was the arrest of Maduro and taking down of that Venezuelan situation, and then beginning the sanctions with oil and drawing attention to all stuff. You could argue and make a very coherent argument that even Tina's release with executive action beyond the pardon was delayed by that 2.5 weeks. And other things happening, the fog of war, et cetera, that Trump hasn't backed off. He's posted, over and over Truth Social about Tina's situation. He's right in there. But there's a lot of moving parts here. And I think for Tina, he knows now. I think there was a concern a couple months ago when a bunch of us dove in and took it to another level on Tina. I did 50 shows.
Yeah, you were on here. We talked about it, yeah.
That's right. And so the reason I say that is that the attention level went up radically. And that also helps Tina to know in her situation, she wasn't alone. She knows it's there. She's hanging on. But she also understands there's some bigger stuff going on. Trump hasn't backed off. But her situation and some of these actions, look, the governor could take and stop this in a heartbeat. He doesn't want to because of the political pressure, and he's fully vested. And when Tina gets out, the threat, not just within the political situation in Colorado, but across the globe, not even just the U.S., what she can say, what she adds to the conversation has so much reach. She goes from pawn to queen. That's a huge thing. So it has to be done correctly, where they can't come back and try to nullify it like that. There's a lot in play. So and hers is a tiny hinge on a very big door. So,
what about the Dominion? I sent a message to you because the comment was made to me is like, Joe, can you please put this up? I told you, and I had to go back and say, am I allowed to talk about the fact that I was asked to poke the bear? And they're like, yeah, sure. So I poked the bear. I sent it to you, and I go, Juan, look at the people that came out of the woodwork on this, and it's that people inside of Dominion voting systems are going to get arrested, and that there are sitting congressmen that are in jeopardy right now, pretty much. And
well, think of all the rhinos that are. This didn't happen in a vacuum, and you and I know that. And it didn't happen in a political vacuum, and it didn't happen in a judicial vacuum. There was communications and cooperation so many levels here. This is why I say it's chess at 5 levels. That for most people are just seeing, a jury and a judge and a trial with Tina. They don't get, the other levels, the way that it really is. This is a big deal.
It is a big deal. So do you think that that's going to happen? You think my person is right? That there's, because I mean, obviously there's I have a vested interest in this. I have a rotted couple judges here in Colorado that have done nothing but just wreak havoc on my life, right? And
Yeah, let me just add this. Let me say it for you, Joe, because I don't want it to sound self-serving. We know separately from even where you've been and stuff that you've been involved in, that Colorado was a nexus for the election fraud in 2020 and many other elections.
Yes.
That many of the people, look, Dominion's U.S. headquarters, arguably world headquarters right there in Colorado. Give me a break. As well as other election software, hardware providers. So there was a nexus there that is now being exposed, not just by the actions related to Tina, but by other investigative work that's coming to a head now. The people that we brought in from outside the country, who we've protected over the last many years, that were protected privately. The U.S. government wasn't involved during those Biden years. They were protected privately, and now they're, literally testifying before grand juries. Another grand jury being sworn in, I believe, yesterday in another location, going to be hearing some of the stuff. So these people won't be testifying just in one place. They'll be testifying in multiple places. And when you have the grand jury, and the grand jury then agrees to hand down an indictment doesn't have to be served instantly. A lot of times an indictment is handed down, then the prosecutor can sit on it while he brings in other players that are also implicated and gets those indictments, and then they have, go get them all at once type of thing, and a number of arrests. And within the category of the elections, this is now, look, the people that are testifying for the grand juries, it couldn't be simpler. We have people that were outside the U.S. who were involved in the mechanic of how the machines frauded elections. They were assisted and protected over several years. They wanted to, for all intents and purposes, using a word that people would recognize more readily, defect. And they were in great danger because the U.S. government wasn't there to receive them, wasn't interested, because you had they were a captured operation. So they were essentially hiding somewhat in plain sight, many of them, a handful out of sight, hoping that America was going to pull it together in time. And then they could essentially come by the evidence and be on the right side of history. Defect from those criminal operations. That has successfully now happened. They're on U.S. soil. They're now being tapped to go before grand juries and tell what they know. They're not the only ones testifying before the grand juries. We have other experts from other government agencies and other private concerns who are testifying with their knowledge of what happened. These grand juries, which are now multiple, are looking at what happened here, and they're not looking to just put one person in prison. They're looking at a global, not just meaning widespread, but literally global across the planet, racket to counterfeit not money, but votes.
Yeah, I mean, this is that whole thing that I talked about with when we went to help me, Raul out of Romania, right? We were uncovering things that it's like this dark. You can't see the bottom, Juan. You can't see the bottom because it's so big. It's so big. It's so big and it's so convoluted, and it's meant to be that way on purpose. And then when you say something about it, you sound like you're a conspiracy theorist. But the more you get into it,
You are.
yeah,
But
you
it's
go,
not a theory; it's a reality. let me add something here, Joe. I apologize, but let me dive in here for a second.
okay.
I want to talk about Colorado. You're running for governor there. I'm very thankful to have somebody like you that's willing to go into the fray like this. I think Coloradans are going to be well served when you're the new governor. In the meantime, having the conversation is so important. So let me just throw this at you. And by the way, you ought to be coming out here in March, end of March. I'll have my chief of staff give you a call. But we have a private. It's not for the public. Meeting looking at bond issues, Bondgate. And in fact, I've had meetings today on this, just finished one a few minutes ago. You should be here on this because Colorado is so central within the bonds. What's the point of getting a politician into office if you're, the mob, the global mob, whatever? Well, it's for money. Follow the money, right? So how are these guys monetizing the advantage they get by having a certain politician in office? Well, they're there to get money. It's not just, favor their little side deal here or there for political gain. It's for monetary gain most of the time, somehow. Okay, so how is that working in Colorado? We go back to origins. And I think what you're going to find, and we have people that will present here, when we do our thing, there in March, on the origins of Mr. Polis's history in Colorado. And you're going to find the projects and things that he was promoting, involved in, places he was at. I think you're going to find that there's a tie to the bonds that were issued that taxpayers had to vote into office that then become a liability against the landowners and like that, and the groups or people that benefited from that. And I think you're going to find that on steroids in Colorado. And so we've found it in lots of other states. I think we have clear indication that's the case of what we're going to find there in Colorado. We're on that path. I think that has to be part of your campaign, because how are they, what's the point of getting these politicians into place? Now, the added feature beyond the bond money, which is the racket to money launder and make all this money within the bonds, is that Colorado also became a nexus to help other states, politicians, and racketeering groups to get their players into office. Colorado was more important as a nexus for the election fraud out into the other states than it was even with the bond fraud. And monetizing things. There's a lot of features that we'll go into. And by the way, we have law enforcement showing up here to help further get into this because the types of guests we have and like that. Private, it's not open to the public. I'd love to have you here because as a governor candidate, we'll have other governor candidates from around the country here also. I want you to understand and talk to the people directly who are involved in these investigations so that you can talk with confidence and authoritatively concerning how it relates to Colorado. But the feature that you would bring that might exceed anything other these people are able to bring is, and how come the vote manipulation coming through Colorado is so important in getting these other people into office, other parts of the country, who could then help secure that the bonds get in place, and then all of the related things as they do these bonds, the unions, the companies that benefit. If you're going to push a bond and you're putting money into a campaign for, let's say, a school district, and you make pools or you do roofs for buildings and all that, well, why are you contributing to the bond campaign to get it passed by the school district? Because you're going to get the contract. That's why you're doing it. So you put 10,000 here, 20,000 there. Well, the next thing you know, it's real money. Well, what are you gonna do? Well, when you get the contract, you're getting paid back for what you put in there. It's a racket, And so we need to dig into that hard. And Colorado is such a core thing. I'd love to make sure that you have your piece in this.
Hey, listen, I'm all about getting to listen and gather data. I just, I think one of my issues, Juan, specifically, and by the way, Father Manhanna is in the studio now.
Good.
So we'll bring him in as well. But one of the things that has been contentious for me has been all the information that's out there, right? I'll start. I'm going to go back to 2020.
It's not over yet.
It's not over yet. No, but I mean, I went and met with Lynn Wood, and Lynn Wood looked at me like I was some sort of. He had this thing where are you a Fed? And he told me like there's underground stuff, and President Trump's still the president. And I was like, I gotta get out of here. And then we had the Q movement, and then it was like information overload, but a lot of it ended up being bullshit, Juan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then it wasn't. Like, so it's bullshit and people are following it.
Well, there's a lot.
But then President Trump got reelected, which nobody thought.
There's a lot of the desire of people that are these globalistas to make us all sound like kooks and nuts.
Right.
And so you have a lot of misdirection. You have a core of some truths and like that, but then you had so many things that went off in wild directions. And so yarding it in like you did I think was critical. And in fact, I just had this conversation with another group over at Space Shot 76, one of my favorite hosts out there, great guy, that we're at that point in the fight where we don't have to go off in wild, crazy directions. In fact, I just had this, I was meeting with somebody in the lobby briefly here at the hotel, and I said the same thing there. We have to focus our efforts right now, and it's not the appropriate time for us to be out there trying to find the latest, newest, farthest out conspiracy theory. It's not about theories at this point in time. It's facts. It's reality. We're now seeing the real, where the bodies are buried. And so there's a certain solemnity that comes at a time like this. We have to be very deadly serious. America and the world almost went under an attack by globalista, by Spectre. It's like a James Bond movie. We almost succumbed to it. It's almost like our man Flint and this group somehow almost took the whole planet with their fake diseases and masks and everybody complying and people going along with it. They almost succeeded. You had the bat story at the head of the show here. Remember, this was so complex. It'd been in the works for years. You may not remember, but the commemorative coin for 2020 for America, for our coins out of the Treasury or out of the Federal Reserve, was a bat.
Right.
Okay. Well, who put that? That took place years in advance. That didn't just happen that week. It was like 15 years in advance. They picked that the bat was going to be such and so coin in the series of coins. Who knew that? These guys did, because part of it is the symbology. They need the reinforcement of things like that to show that they somehow win. It's their little secret handshake behind the scenes. We're in control here. We've always been in control. And so now they're losing control because of work like what you're doing, or let's say Tina.
Yeah. No.
Equation, did they see Tina coming?
But they've been saying so many lies about Tina Peters that it's been going on for so long, and that they start to believe those lies, and people start to parrot those lies. And I'm not talking about people on the left. I'm talking about people that call themselves Republicans or good people.
Right.
They repeat the same thing. Well, she was found guilty by a jury of her peers, and they create this story. And even when Tina Peters was when they were doing the appeal, and John Case is talking, the judge had to correct the assistant attorney general, because he's like, wait a minute, she wasn't charged for that, so why do you keep repeating it? because they use these flamboyant, these hyperbolic statements in order to create fact that doesn't exist, Juan. It doesn't exist.
Well, let me ask you this. You see, I thought the judges are political creatures too, whether you choose to hear it that way or not. I believe that the work that this community did over the last couple of months, all the calls to the White House, all the calls to the governor's office, all of the radio interviews that not just you and I did, but out in the community, bringing up Tina Peters, and then peripheral stuff with the election stuff, that cumulatively the judges couldn't not acknowledge it and look legit. They're going to be attorneys practicing. They're going to go back into private life. They come from law firms that have all attorneys in. They were sensitized to the fact that the public wasn't happy with how this trial was handled and how this judge handled it, what the jury heard. They felt some angst that they also decided they knew in advance how they were going to treat this. They already had the briefs from the attorneys involved, the prosecution and the defense. They had the briefs, and then they decided to do it with live stream video, which is very rare. They did that because they wanted the public to see where they stood on this stuff, and then they were playing to the cameras. They weren't just playing to the people in the courtroom. They weren't playing to the prosecutor. And then they even went over time in this hearing to make sure that their point of how they were hearing this stuff and seeing it and thinking about it, they were not good with what had happened in Tina's prosecution, the way the judge handled trial. Remember, it's a 3-judge panel. What are they really reviewing? They're not solely reviewing Tina, they're reviewing the judge. Did the judge provide a fair trial for Tina?
Well, I think they came to the conclusion right then, no. The answer is no.
And they were very proactive, and they wanted the public to see it to kind of get ahead of what's going on here. I think what you just saw there in Colorado, and they won't rush. They may, in their mind, think they're rushing. It'll take them weeks, if not a month or two, to come up with their decision, because so much plays off of this for them that they're going to the impact within the Colorado system and nationally of what they say in reviewing this appeal is huge. And by the way, when we were at the federal court, we really didn't get treated well for Tina. Last month. Now, here in Colorado, I think you're seeing a sea change. The waves, the density of the current flow is such, they just telegraphed to all the other judges in Colorado. When they had that public open to the public, live stream to view, I bet you dollars to donuts most of the rest of the judiciary in Colorado just saw that. And they saw that the tone that this appeals court applied to this sent a message to all the other judges. If this crap comes before you, you better not be going this way, because we're about to do damage to this judge and the way that this trial was handled, and you better not just weigh in like it's a free-for-all for all the other people and defendants like that, and even out to the rest of the country. They telegraphed a message that I think is, and it's a warning to the politicians. We can't go along with what your bought and paid for judges may do, and they sense that other stuff is about to come out related to this trial. Look, did this judge do what he did against Tina in a vacuum, or was he communicating with and being coached in how he dealt with this case?
Well, I mean, look, Juan, I'm very familiar with what the organized crime structure is, right? I think I've read more books on it than I probably care to, and I've seen some of it enacted in certain areas. The judges are the enforcers in this. The captains are the politicians. Judges are the enforcers. And then the earners on the streets are the nonprofits and the lawyers and the lawfare that gets created. And then the boss, we haven't figured out who the boss is yet, right? But there's bosses. There's a couple bosses up here that are working together in our country in order to destroy everything. But it's centralized. They get to decide state by state. They got a little map, all 50 states, and they figure out how can they take from the people what is there. So they predetermine cases all the time. These judges are just enforcers. Their job is basically to make the process the punishment, right? And even if Tina gets out, she still had to go through the punishment. She still had to go through, and there's no recourse, Juan. There's no recourse.
They can't buy one day of her life back for her.
No.
No money buys that back.
I want to bring Father Manhanna on as well. Juan, you know Father Manhanna?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Beautiful friend, and we've been cohorts for quite some time. So glad to see that you have him there.
I said I'm gonna have Juan on. He goes, I got to come on with you.
I miss you, Juan. I hope you're doing well.
I am, and of course look forward to crossing paths again soon. So, you said mass for Tina yesterday during what happened with the court. There's a God governs in the affairs of men, and when you think that God isn't there, then you're blind. God, of course, is there. That's part of the whole story biblically of all of these people that led nations, and some had hardened hearts, some turned their hearts to God, and then favor or disfavor would accompany it, and judgment even, both for good and for wrong. And so invoking divine assistance, even for the judges involved, that the hand of God was on the situation. I think your prayers, the prayers of this community, had a big impact. We might not know in this world precisely, but in the world to come, we'll see that there was some monstrously huge impact on these judges to even converse the way they did yesterday, and to decide to allow us to see that communication, because we needed to see it. They wanted us to see it, and so you and I talked the other day, and I said, yes, absolutely, a mass is appropriate. I'm not Catholic, but prayers to God, and He hears, and He, I think, heard your prayers and the prayers of this community in bringing these judges to speak as they did yesterday. Am I saying it right? Is that good?
You're right. Thank you, first of all, for your encouragement, and thanks to Tina, by all means, for her pain, for her suffering, for her endurance, for her resilience, and for her trust in the judicial system as well.
She never trusted the judicial system.
But she's going through the process.
Yeah,
she's going through the process.
Well,
she's
is that
not
to go
giving
to
up.
jail?
But that's the trust. I mean, it's like my situation.
She didn't run.
She didn't run away. She didn't run away. She's facing it.
She's facing it with the belief that even going through it, she's forcing things to come back and operate properly, and to have it come out.
That's what I meant.
She's a heroine, but to face it like this and face it head on, my gosh, the strength of will to stand
correct
into the storm in this way, it's pretty epic. So,
and she didn't break with her sickness, with her illness, with the loss of her, son and husband.
I just don't want anybody to get yelling at me in the comments that she didn't, because her and I had this conversation many times, and I was like, the judiciary is not your friend, it's not your friend, it's not your friend. She goes, oh, I get it. I was like, do you trust the judiciary? She goes, no.
Well, to Juan's point, yesterday, we went in, and some people, when they saw me standing in line and they knew me, they said, thank you, Father, for being here. I said, I experience injustice myself, whether in, church's law or civil law. You're right, the judicial system gets weaponized sometimes. Most
Most
of the time.
Especially,
especially,
I will correct you.
You're right.
Father, I did. We had
especially in the last 7 years or 8 years. It was really, since 2015, actually. I remember when Juan and myself, we were walking together in somewhere in a town, in a different state out of Colorado. And I said, Juan, I do not know if I have enough courage to face the challenges that they're actually, the pain they're causing us. And he goes, you know, what else they can do? They're going to kill us. But we cannot be afraid. We cannot live in fear. And we have to have the certainty that we are working for the truth. And we have an obligation to restore the trust in our public system in the United States. The last thing you want in America is a country that is like Lebanon now, where the judicial system serves terrorism or serves corruption, including inside the church institutions.
Are you saying the United States system doesn't support those two things?
We have to support the judicial system in a way that to force it to say the truth. Because it's one of our last hopes, honestly, in the U.S. to have law and order.
It's the reason why we don't have law and order.
It's a fact. You're right.
And if we start being honest about our intentions, and honest, so there's a mechanism, Father, and forgive me for saying this. There's a mechanism that we have where we establish hope with fact, and we try to marry those two together, right? And the fact that we know what the system is supposed to do.
Correct.
So we talk in a language that aligns with what it's supposed to do, knowing full well that it is rotted to the core and there's really not much left of it. Because when you look at the balance that happens and the fingers on the scales of that balance, all we have to do is point to at the highest level, these foreign judges that are standing over 130 times now, standing in the way of President Trump, enacting things, getting access to information. I mean, we are in a state of absolute sedition and treason. I mean, it's hard to ignore, right?
Right, except for yesterday, something happened. A miracle happened.
Yeah.
You notice the judges were right on. They gave hard time to the prosecution. They gave hard time to the defense. But I think they treated Tina with factual justice. And somehow, at least they highlighted the injustices.
You know why?
Go ahead.
Because of the mob mentality. There's a fear. If you go back to January 6th, Juan, tell me if I'm wrong. If you go back to January 6th, there was a genuine fear by the government to fear the people, which it's always healthy to have a fear of the people. But it's gotten to the point where it's at such a high level that these judges have realized that they have no clothes. They're playing the part. They're going through the process. But these three judges are very aware that there are eyeballs, the Christopher Gregory case that is now exposing over $15 million in bribes that involves Polis, Weiser, the judiciary, judges, attorneys, inside of to the highest level. So right now they're feeling this pressure because now it's a culmination of things coming together. I don't believe the sincerity of the judiciary, including these judges, has anything to do with anything other than the people have finally said, and there was a lot of people there, we've had enough.
Yeah. But,
well, let me just jump in here real quick. That was what we were talking about a few minutes ago, Joe, that the work that we did within this community to bring Tina Peters over the last couple of months to the fore, to have everybody have her name on their lips and her situation. The judges, that's why, even though previously and at other times they rarely allow video in the courtroom of something like this, they wanted and needed to be seen looking more even-handed, and also to send a message at a certain level to all the other judges in the area that you better watch what you're doing because there's all this scrutiny. We're going to err on the side of being good guys or whatever, and so it was community pressure that reined these judges in. If we hadn't done what we did over the last 60 days, I don't believe that they would have televised that hearing or it would have been as clear as it was. But they knew the community outside of Colorado, not just Colorado, was paying such close attention. Even the president sending out his statements numerous times. They know the jig is up at a certain level, and they don't want to get caught in the middle of something bigger. And so they're trying to get ahead of this coming crisis.
They say there's a little bit of truth in what people say and even what people do to give themselves credibility. It's like a clawback, right? So you have you have the stack of 1,000 different bad decisions, procedural mistakes, fingers on the scales of justice, and they think by making one good decision that it overshadows all the things that they did over here. But the people, I'm telling you right now, I talk to people in Colorado every day. There is not a dislike for the judiciary. There is a hate for the judiciary that is so deep. And I'm talking about attorneys that have been attorneys for 30 years. I'm talking about previous legislators, pastors, parents. It's deep. It's really, really deep. There is no regard for the judiciary inside of Colorado. None.
Okay, but let me add this one thing. This is really important. And if I was going to leave something with everybody here, this is the one thing. Justice, in order to get America back, you have to reestablish a sense that we are a just nation, and it has to be demonstrative. We're not going to do tribunals. We're not just going to have military on the streets and it's some kind of a coup. We will have military on the streets in order to secure a just environment and restore it if it's temporary, because it's gotten that far out of control. And this is why, for example, why is Gitmo so crucial in this huge whole equation? Because the justice system, you can't get to justice in the justice system the way it is in America right now, all the way to Washington, D.C. It is so screwed up. So with that in mind, you have 130,000 employees in the Justice Department. You can't get one investigation to go right, it doesn't seem like. Are you out of your mind? It's crazy. So you have to now go past that. But we were attacked on a global basis by people from outside the country. This isn't a policing situation. This is a military situation. We will have military justice that will then provide the protection to come back in and reorganize within the policing system, the policing side of the justice system, and get back to some kind of truth.
Law and order, the application.
Law and order, and it's gotten that far out of whack that it can't be fixed just with policing or legislation.
Agreed.
Because it's left the constitutional confines. And so that's why, and this is the reason, let me just add this one little teeny thing. So when I hear people, you were talking about people going off the rails, and one of the key features of people going off the rails, they say that we have all these hangings at Gitmo, they've been tried, they've got. If you had secret tribunals and secret executions, it would not fix America or the world. What you have to restore a sense of justice is you have to be able to see the trials like Nuremberg, let them present their defenses if they have any, and then see justice served. Within that context, now you can come back and get to the local and street level and begin to administer justice again, because you now have a frame of reference. You have a yardstick. We have to reestablish a sense that there are consequences to the crimes. And that's part of what Trump's doing internationally. Is we have rules about trafficking of black market oil. But there's no consequence. Nobody's out grabbing a tanker. Nobody's stopping China from trading all the money on the black market and funding all this mischief, Russia, Iran, the terrorists, etc. All of a sudden, the new sheriff, part of the thing is it's not just the political. Where did Trump go immediately after taking in Maduro? And even before, stop the cash flow, stop the oil. And we're grabbing them on the sea because they violate already existent international laws and agreements. So we're going to stop that flow. There's the sheriff enforcing what we've already agreed to as an international community is acceptable and right in the norms, etc. Even Maduro, we had a grand jury that handed down indictments, and we had a $50 million bounty on Maduro for 6 months. And then finally it got served. Well, all of a sudden there's a consequence. He was going to just sit there in power and give us all the finger. Well, we gave him the finger back, and we grabbed him and snatched him, and he'll now spend the rest of his life in prison. He thought he could just defy it in the world and come to his rescue. New sheriff in town.
Do you think?
Root level, even of a Tina, new sheriff in town, and those judges just showed they recognize what's been going on isn't going to cut it moving forward, and they just telegraphed to you. Does that make sense, guys?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You know, you're studying the Bible, you're studying the gospel, you're studying the history of the Catholic Church, the catechism of the church, and so Juan is very equipped, and I know he's very knowledgeable in this. You know the story in the gospel of the persistent widow who went to the unjust, the crooked judge, and because of her persistence, the judge had to grant her the justice. First of all, justice is a divine right, not a human right. United States as a model of justice for me, coming from the Middle East, speaking all these languages, learning the history of the church, history of religions, and seeing that every model of every government system failed when the state citizens stopped believing in the application of law. People turned chaotic, people turned to the streets, people started seeking their own rights with their own hands. We do not want to see this in the US. In the US, what we saw 2 days ago with Tina is that there were enough lawyers, there was enough support from the president, thank God. Some people in Colorado, and you said it, obviously it's not the people we expected that they're gonna be supportive of Tina, but the persistence that these people had over and over, telling, I want my justice, why are you persecuting me? I think on a spiritual level, I would say, the persistence of Tina and not giving up, that she has to say, I was right in what I was doing, or I find a way to justify my position. I think 2 days ago, those judges agreed with her.
Yes, 100%.
Well, wait a second, Joe. Remember, you probably know this better than I do, just from the local side. But Tina got offered by the SOS, Secretary of State, that if she just said uncle and agreed that the machines were okay and that she was wrong, if she would just kiss the ring, kiss the robe, that she wouldn't go through all of this. And Tina went forward. She would get out. This all could go away. If it's like a scene from Braveheart. This can all go away. This can all end. Just agree for the public. And she didn't do that. All of this, the conviction, the prison time, is the result of her not kissing the ring. Isn't that? You talk about resolve.
Yeah, she's willing to go through it. She's willing to go all the way through it. And I agree with you, Father. I agree with you. And I came back last night. I went somewhere with a friend, and I came back into the studio and I just sat here. And all the lights were out, and I sat in here and I wanted to ask God why. Right? I mean, you say trust the process, and I trust God implicitly. I do. I mean, everything in me trusts him. And then I say, and then I didn't say but. I said, and then I get to this place where the pain of the process is so punishing that you can't. And then you watch other people go through that same pain. And so you see I look at when Jesus had to walk 2 miles up a hill to his own death and carry his own cross, and all of the people that watched and did nothing.
His own friends.
Yeah, they did nothing.
Well, in his prayer in Gethsemane, if it be possible, let this cup pass, yet not my will, but thine be done. Is that the Tina moment? Is that your moment where, if there's any way I could not have to go through this yet, you made a choice? Even I'll tell you what, even running for governor, what a pain in the neck to go through all of the everything to run for public office at this point in time. Those that choose to do that, that's a big deal. I know how hard it is on personnel, family, everything else. I have a lot of respect for anybody that makes that choice in this environment, and love you, Joe, for doing it.
I'm only doing it though, and we had dinner the other night. We sat and talked about the political one. Father and I talked with a bunch of people, and we sat there and we talked about the zeros and ones.
Correct.
And one of the people that was there, who I respect a ton, was asked the question, was that what you go after inside your organization? And she said, no, we go after the 3s and 4s, the zeros and ones. They're too difficult. They cost too much. And that made me really emotional, because I
agree. I mean, we were shocked. I mean, somebody was asking Joe at dinner. We met for prayer, him and me, and some gathering, Juan. Yeah. When I had told you I'm gonna meet with Joe, and then somebody asked him, "You're really running for governor? So what's your agenda?" He said, "I'm going for the 0 and 1s." And we go like, "Who are the 0s and 1s?" He goes, "Exactly. They are the people who are neglected, the people who are victims of real injustices, the people who have no voice in Colorado," which is honestly probably the majority of the people, not only in Colorado, but beyond our states. Many Americans and somehow remained in silence, right? So how do you know? At the time of voting, they do not vote because they don't trust the voting system anymore. At the time of a policies change possibilities or looking at new bills, it doesn't matter because they gave up on a system. So he himself has actually said, I'm gonna go for those people to tell them, trust me, trust the system. I'm here to listen to you. And then together we can govern, basically. So he's doing the exact same thing to your point and to my point.
Let me add this, Father and Joe. When we say Tina didn't trust the justice system, of course she didn't, because she knew that something was wrong. You don't trust justice, but yet we go through this as a corrective action to point out what's wrong and to force it to come back on point. You're going through the candidacy, running for office, knowing how crooked the system has been, and to point it out, and also with an understanding that as we go through it, especially this time, that other things, there's a certain, please God, make it so, faith that we're about to see some kind of history happen. I've told you behind the scenes with what President Trump is going to do. He is going to sign a national emergency declaration related to elections, just like he signed the COVID one March 13th of 2020. He is about to sign a national election emergency bill or declaration. Mm-hmm. And then he's going to issue an executive order in that context. And the reason he has to do it the way he's doing it right now, just very briefly, President Trump on March 26th of 2025, Executive Order 107, the 107th one of this administration, signed at 107 in the afternoon, by the way, said that all of the counties across the country and the states had to clean their voter rolls, and they had 180 days to do it. When on September 26th, that wasn't all done. In fact, none of them were, almost virtually no counties in the country did that. They essentially thumbed their nose at the executive order by the president. So it established that we are in a lawless situation, that even an executive order couldn't fix this, just like the pardon of Tina. The states and the counties are just thumbing their nose. They're not going to be reined in any way. So the only way to fix the elections from this point forward is to declare a national emergency, which then invokes military power
Right.
to take control of the election process, and where they wouldn't clean the voter rolls by an executive order. And you're not going to get this through the legislature. You're not going to get this through the Congress. You're not going to get it at the state level. It's all hodgepodge. We're in an existential crisis to survive as a nation, and you can't have fake votes deciding who's in power, because the people faking it, they're counterfeiting it.
At any level.
At any level, they're taking over the country and the world and the way the money's spent and all that. So the only way to do it at this point is an executive action as the commander in chief, because the origins of the attack on America aren't internal. They're external. This is a globalist operation. You asked a few minutes ago, Joe, about who is the they that are pulling the strings. And the thing that I would say here is that while there is local, national people, even they are not ultimately the puppeteers here. You may have the wood stick at the top that's attached to the string, but there's a hand behind that, and that's this globalist hand that's actually doing the puppeteering with their global agenda.
I would even argue, Juan, that there's even principalities on top of that. You know, Joe was asking a few minutes ago, who's behind all of this? The principalities.
Yeah.
You know, and United
These are
States
possessed people.
Yes.
These are demon-possessed people who've given themselves over to evil, ultimately for the devil himself to usurp authority over the planet away from children of Adam, who have actual ownership and authority.
That's why we see this spiritual revival in the United States. You know, one thing, when my own hierarchy attacked me because of the relationship with President Trump, and from there, everything that happened consequent to that, I go like, this man is calling for God. This man, I mean, it's not like I stood by the president because of political stand.
Yeah.
You have no idea. When we meet with him in the White House and in the Rose Garden, and he would look at these spiritual leaders, really with a sincere heart, he would tell them, guys, tell me what should I do. I trust you, because politicians lie, those people lie. And he would point to them. He would point to all of these people, and he would call them really liars. And we were like, oh my God, the president is really putting the spiritual leaders on notice. He's telling the spiritual leaders, I want you to be in your best behavior possible, in the best attitude possible, and tell me the truth. And the truth is that United States is in a plan of God. United States, if we leave the divine providence that founded us with the fathers of the U.S., now is the testing ground. Now is a time where bells need to ring again. Prayers need to be called again. Christians need to revive their own families, rejuvenate them in the love of the Bible, the love of the church. Because, I tell you, one of the powers that is helping corruption, unfortunately, as we see it unfolding, and you and Juan both know about this, even the churches have been co-opted. The highest leaderships in the churches have been now co-opted, and they're
Well, let me help you. Hold on, you're self-serving here. I'm going to help you out because I wanted to say it in this direction. Father, you were the one that was asked and went and exercised the White House before Melania and the president would move in the first term. And so President Trump famously said the devil's been removed from the White House, okay? And then they would move in. But as a result of that relationship and the fact that some attention was drawn to you, you didn't get attacked merely from, say, a political or a media side. The attack was internal within the church. And I would even argue, and this is why this even goes to why it's so beautiful you're there saying mass for the situation with Tina. You were attacked, and almost nobody knows this. I don't know if you've said this publicly, but the coordination of the attack appears in large measure to have been coordinated out of Venezuela into the church in the U.S. and to you in Colorado through California, that you were attacked because of your political association, but within the church. And so we have captured operations. The church is not immune from capture. The demons are trying to get control everywhere. It's not just the Justice Department, it's not just the political system, it's not just corporate America. In the church itself, which, by the way, even in Christ's time, within the temple, within the temple operations, that was a captured operation with Caiaphas and his whole crew. So we're not immune in our time to people who've given themselves over to the devil, and yet they hold office within the church. And I think that's what happened with you. You were attacked for a reason, because you were dangerous within the political community as a resource, an advocate, a contact to the president, and they had to damage you and isolate you from credibility and access to the president of the United States, President Trump. And that's why you were attacked.
Probably you and Lara were the only ones who probably heard the voice message, or I told you about, which we gave to the authorities in the US, talking about Colorado and that.
Well, you know that I paid a fair amount of money for your protection, because you were under not just verbal attack, you were under physical threat, extreme physical threat, not the people coming after you like the people who will go after Trump. These aren't players. These are world.
I want to ask your advice in this. I think I want to let Joe listen to the voice message that came on November 6th, I believe, or November 5th. November 6th in the morning in 2016, after I prayed for President Trump here in Colorado, and that demonic voice that came, which we gave to the authority. I never let anybody hear it, actually. I did not even share it with you. But I want to share it with you.
Well, I think I heard it in that time frame. The one thing I want to say, Father, is that if you remember, because a lot of this gets foggy as you get further out in time, but the problem was, if you said anything publicly, it would sound like you're just looking for attention or whatever, or you might get copycats that want to come in and chime in addition. So we had to be very careful to take the threats seriously, which these were serious threats, and even at a demonic level, people that are under other influences. Okay, we had to take that seriously without complicating the situation or looking like we were trying to grandstand or do other things. That was the delicate part of keeping you viable and safe, while not blowing it up and making more of it, or bringing in other people, or even distracting from the president.
Right. Even though the hierarchy tried to put it out there, like every so often they would send something to the public, and one would tell me, "Don't respond. Just keep doing your canonical defense." And I never spoke in public about it.
And you were
they
attacked
wanted me
inside
actually
the
because
church.
I did not. Yeah.
You were attacked inside the church's judicial system, and with other threats. That's what. And so, just to the listeners out there, you can be all brave and puff your chest out and everything else, and I'm fine. But to be attacked, this was, pain. You know that how many people have suffered, even to die because of monsters. Who wants to just puff their chest out and act like I don't have any threat and the angels are protecting me and everything else? There's still a tangible side. You have to operate with some level of responsibility. And so how do you not overdo it or put yourself in serious, obvious danger? There was a fine line there. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, Father. And you had to skate through all of that, and you did it beautifully. And we had great security people that helped you through that, and got you here. You're still here, bro.
Well, unfortunately, I got 3 minutes till I have to be on another lawyer call for this other stuff. But Juan, thanks for joining us, brother. I need to get you back on, and more to do. I'm more than willing to come wherever you want in March.
1 10-second thing. Yeah. Father Manhanna, to give you an idea how much I trust that God himself is speaking to him, 3 different people over less than a month approached me privately and had a message that was very, very nearly identical, length and information. And the unique thing was Father Manhanna was the 3rd one. The first 2 have been struck by lightning 3 times. And then Father Manhanna, we're sitting at dinner after he gave me his message, And so I reach over the next table at the folks' house that we're at. And I says, the dangerous part, Father Manhanna, it was lightning outside. It was raining and pouring. It was just coming down like you couldn't believe it. And I says, the dangerous part, Father Manhanna, the last people that gave a message from God for me, he did it impromptu. I didn't know what was happening. He didn't know I'd had other people that said this. He says, I said, Father Manhanna, the last couple of people that had a word from God for me had all been struck by lightning multiple times. And he reaches across the table. I didn't know this. He reaches across the table, puts his arm on my arm, and says, son, I also have been struck by lightning 3 times. So I had 3 different guys all with that thing. Yeah, but your message was so in line with the other ones that it reaffirmed to me. I had to hear it 3 times, hear the same message, but 3 different people. I have great trust that when you're speaking, you're hearing from God Almighty in heaven. And that's why, Joe, even in having Father Manhanna in your close associations, relationships, and even in this audience, this is somebody that hears from God, and God knows him by name personally. He's an important ally asset within our community. Thank you. I put politics all the time, Joe, but I just wanted to pass it along for folks.
I believe that
Thank
fully.
you, Juan.
Father, do you want to pray us out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, today the prayer should be the Our Father, because this is a prayer that changes all ill wills to make him in conformity with God's divine will. Because this is a prayer that removes every fake name and proclaims the saint name of God, the Holy One. Because this is a prayer that gives bread to the poor. This is a prayer that perpetuates forgiveness and pardon, and obliges human beings in order to seek future for peace, to pardon one another the same way God will pardon us. Because this is a prayer that summons the entire Bible, and every word in it moves the angels of heaven and earth to do God's divine will. So I offer it for Tina's redemption, for her healing, and definitely for her immediate release. I offer it for Joe and all the candidates who are running for the governorship in the state of Colorado, and all the candidates in the United States and across our nation. I offer it for the people in Iran, in Venezuela, for the people in all over the world that they are seeking freedom, they are seeking justice. I offer it for our military forces who are now everywhere in the world trying to respond to emergencies, for our president, especially today as we commemorate a day of prayer in the United States, and as we are coming also to the March for Life in the United States. I offer it for the 2026 years that we enter into a 7-year pilgrimage and walk with the Lord, all the way to his great jubilee in 2033, that the power and the victory of the Holy Cross will destroy every spirit of animosity and will truly confirm us in the peace of Jesus Christ. And finally, I offer it for the intention of the people who are with us and joining us on this podcast, and for Juan and your safety and the great work that you have been doing. We offer it for our enemies as well, and we offer it to consecrate United States in this year for the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of the Virgin Mary and for the glory of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So let us pray the Our Father. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy
Hallowed
name.
be thy
Thy
name.
kingdom
Thy
come,
kingdom
thy
come,
will be
thy will be
done
done
on
on
earth
earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this
Give us
day
this
our
day
daily
our daily
bread,
bread,
and forgive
and
us
forgive
our
us our
trespasses,
trespasses
as we
as we
forgive
forgive
those who
those who
trespass
trespass
against us.
against us.
And lead us
And
not
lead us
into
not into
temptation,
temptation,
but
but
deliver us
deliver
from
us
evil.
from evil.
For the
For
kingdom,
thine
the
is the
power,
kingdom,
and the glory are
the power,
yours,
and the
now
glory
and
forever.
forever. Amen.
Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Peace be with you and with your spirit. May Almighty God bless us all, protect us from all evil, forgive us our sins, bring us to peace, victory, and joy in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and may God bring us to everlasting life. Amen.
Amen. I leave that with you. Juan, it was great talking to you. I'll reach back out to you.
Of
God
course.
bless you all.
Yeah,
See you guys
appreciate it. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Rising from the fight for the forgotten and the free, exposing rigged machines, Kuma's lies, Dominion's deceit, pays a grand each day, shielding truth from corrupt halls, but he won't back down, standing tall through it all. Martin, Tina Peters break the chains that bind her tight, hand count votes and one day bring the fraud to light. No more mailing scams, no machines to steal the night, restore the people's voice, make Colorado right. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true, badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through, abolish property tax, cut the tolls away, shrink the bloated state, let the people have their say. It's our rally call, truth and freedom rise and watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud, we'll be one man for the people, set our great state free. Help the single moms, bring back trade school strong, opportunity for youth, where the brave belong. Audit every NGO, ban the wolves that roam, reclaim our stolen land, bring the power home. Eric Kuma's fraud, Dominion's rigged design, expose the stolen votes, cross a dangerous line. No more victimhood, no chains on you and me. He's running for governor for real liberty. Smash the fraud machine, pardon heroes jailed, for the have-nots rising, truth will never fail. One warrior defies the corrupt elite, Colorado reborn, strong on our feet. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true, badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through, abolish property tax, cut the tolls away, shrink the bloated state, let the people have the say. Governor Oltmann, it's our rally call, truth and freedom rise and watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud, we'll be one man for the people, set our great state free. Whoa, 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 whoa. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Governor Oltmann, freedom forever, Colorado rise. Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann. Rise up untamed, in the heart of the fight where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real, no more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown, take swear the brave